Ooh, that smells bad. Okay. Hi guys. You just recently sent your Logitech Wingman Force 3D force feedback joystick up in the smokes. Yeah, that's what I did. And this little board here, circuit board. Ah, yeah, smells like burnt electronics. Now if you turn it around, we can see that little chip right there. This one, which is an A3966 SLR. Well, that's a motor controller, and this board, this whole board, is the force feedback controller of the joystick, which is right here in naked form. Well, in this video I'm not gonna show you how to disassemble this joystick, because there are a lot of other videos on YouTube like this one.
Shaking, forcing you back to center where you don't want to be. So we're going to take it apart, of course. Kind of what we do. So this joystick in particular comes with a standalone power supply. Now this is a pretty...
Alright, so this is what they do, and what we do is just to burn them out. Okay, what happened is, okay, it's a USB joystick with two motors here for force feedback, right there. One is here and one is right there. Those are DC motors, and those DC motors are controlled by this board. And more specifically by this chip. What you notice here is that this chip is right after the power supply connector, right? That's where the DC power comes in. Even though this is a USB joystick, you will need a oh god, the focusing problem with this smartphone, not very smart, is it? Okay, so even though this joystick is USB, the USB port doesn't supply enough current to drive this board. So what you need to do is to use an external power supply for this, a DC power supply. Well, I lost mine years ago, and I haven't used this joystick for many years. It was just sitting in the closet up there, and now recently I decided to use it again, and I, stupid me, inserted the wrong power supply here, which had more voltage than required, and this is what happened. Right there, a nice little hole right on that chip. It just burned a hole. Wow. Yeah, that was bad, and it smelled awful. Okay, well, I took this chip off already, so just put it back here so that I can show you where it was. And went to the old trusty eBay and found this replacement right there. It's hard to read the writings on it, but it's basically the same chip with a little bit more voltage tolerance. So it's not the exact same number, but there's a T at the end after the R right there. But otherwise it's the same thing. So the old one is gone, the new one will replace it right here. Okay, I'm not gonna show you the whole soldering process, but I'm gonna show you whether it works or not after this fix. So stay tuned. Alright folks, I'm back. I'm done soldering, and you can easily say that this job doesn't look like very professional one. Okay, one of the reasons this ended up being like this is this copper, this big copper part, which is the ground. And I think, well, it's an unusual design for a ground plane. So all I can think of is just, you know, this whole thing is used as a heat sink. But because it's made of copper, it loves molten solder. Yeah, it does, and it got pretty messy down there, soldering all these legs. But I can assure you, there's no shorts between the legs, and I know that because I checked them all individually with a multimeter. It just looks ugly, but soldering is done properly, and as I said, there are no shorts, and every single leg is soldered in place properly. There's one thing that you probably immediately noticed is that this little yellow wire here, and the reason for that is when this whole thing shorted, this is where this chip receives the DC power. This is the plus 24 volt leg, and when this thing burned a hole inside the chip, it also burned the trace on the board. So there was no trace to solder this leg to. It was all just gone. So what I done is I checked the back of the board, and what I've seen here is there's a power plane here. See, this is one of the legs of the 24 volt power supply. That's the plus, I believe. No, I don't believe it. It is the plus side, and this plane provides the power to the chip via a wire. Via a wire, yeah. So this power goes from here, used to go from this little wire here back to the front side of the board and under this leg. But it was, the leg was, you know, the trace was burned. So what I did, I just used a little piece of wire to be able to connect this leg. And I also checked continuity between this and the ground. When I first opened it up, they were shorted, so right now they're okay. They're not shorted, and as you can see, this chip has 16 legs, and 8 of them are actually connected to the ground, like 1, 2, 3 here, 1, 2, 3 on this side, and this leg here and that leg here. They're all connected to the ground plane. So one is the power, this yellow one, with the one with the yellow wire, and the rest is for the other purposes which I'm not quite sure about, because I haven't examined the chip to see what each leg does what. But that's basically it. So this board doesn't only control the motors, but also controls the rest of the joystick. Like this is the USB connector here, and this chip is probably the USB chip. I haven't checked it on the internet, but it looks like an SD brand. Yeah. So anyway, so this two switches here. These are the switches, you know, for the two buttons on this cover here. Those two, 06 and 07. Yeah, button 6 and 7. Yeah. So this is more than just motor control, but it's also the whole main control board for the whole joystick. Okay, anyway, that's enough. So here comes the moment of truth. Will this work or not? We'll see just in a moment after I reassemble this, come back, insert it, and see if it's gonna work. Okay folks, I was so curious that I wanted to test the joystick before actually completely reassembling it. Okay, so what I've done, I just reconnected the board and reconnected the cables, but the whole joystick is still not fully assembled. However, I can still test the force feedback. Okay, so connected to a power supply, and here's my Logitech software. Now I'm gonna push this button here, see what happens. Wow, it seems to work. How about this one? Good. So it is working. So guys, as you can see, this was a success. So that tells you that ugly looking solder job worked. That's it folks. If you burnt your joystick, that's probably what happened. This motor control has been probably burnt, and this is how to fix it. Thank you for watching.